Begin with that disturbing outburst. Michelle Blair, you saw her, that mother accused of killing her children, putting them in a freezer.
The courtroom was supposed to be a place of tears, regret, and justice, but what unfolded left the world stunned. Parents, accused of the unthinkable, murdering their own child, sat before the judge as the sentence was read, and instead of sorrow, they gave the world smirks, eye rolls, whispers, and even laughter. Cameras caught it all, the most cold-blooded display of arrogance and disrespect you will ever see in a courtroom.
I ain't gonna let you sit here and say no crazy shit about me, man. No, man, because he's...
Family members broke down in tears, jurors shifted uncomfortably, and even the judge's face showed pure disbelief.
You're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it. You gutted him like a fish in that apartment too. You were relentless.
What kind of parents act like this after taking a life? And how did the courtroom explode when the final judgment came down? Buckle up, because these reactions will leave you speechless. We are starting from number 10, and here we have Isabelle Martinez.
Anyone about your case. Every phone call you make from this jail is recorded. When Judge Thorpe comes in here, turns on this recording.
Isabelle Martinez appeared before Gwinnett County Magistrate Judge Michael Thorpe in Lawrenceville, Georgia, on July 7, 2017, one day after authorities say she stabbed to death her husband and 4 of their children and critically injured a 5th. The surviving child, a 9-year-old daughter named Diana, was hospitalized and in serious condition. Martinez was arrested at the family home in Loganville early Thursday morning following a 911 call reporting the attack. During her first court appearance, Martinez displayed behavior that surprised many. She smiled and struck poses for cameras before the hearing. She gave a double thumbs up, knelt, put her hands together in prayer, and spread her arms wide.
Came here from Guatemala, but they will not be available as a witness because the Gwinnett County DA's office will go and get them and bring...
Judge Thorpe cautioned her sharply, telling her to stop performing for the cameras. When the charges were read, 5 counts each of malice murder and murder, along with 6 counts of aggravated assault, Martinez shook her head no and wagged her finger. She told the judge, through a Spanish-language interpreter, that she did not want an attorney. She said people and her faith would serve as her counsel. The judge strongly advised her to accept legal representation or allow one to be appointed.
Order. And, ma'am, I'm going to caution you to cut out the display for the cameras. It's really not a good idea, probably not to your benefit. I can't physically stop you from doing it, but it ain't a good idea.
Authorities identified the victims as her husband, Martin Romero, 33, and 4 of their children, Isabella, who was 10, Dakota, ages 7, Dylan, ages 4, and Axel, age 2. Martinez is also under an immigration hold. ICE confirmed she is a Mexican national. If you think that was nerve-wracking, wait till you see the next entry. At number 9 is Michelle Blair. The charges Mitchell Blair faced were unimaginable. She was accused of murdering her own children and hiding their bodies in a freezer. The horror was uncovered during an eviction in March 2015, when authorities found the remains of 13-year-old Stoney Blair and 9-year-old Stephen Berry. The revelation sent shockwaves through Detroit and across the nation. Blair's later admission of the killings left the public stunned and horrified. From the start of the trial, Blair's behavior shocked everyone in the courtroom. She openly confessed, saying, "I did kill her," referring to her daughter Stoney, and later added, "I don't feel no remorse for the death of those demons."
There's no way that his brother and sister should know what he feels like inside. There's no way.
Understood.
I don't feel no remorse for the death of them demons.
Her outbursts were intense and frequent. She repeatedly confronted the fathers of her surviving children, accusing them of neglect and betrayal. On multiple occasions, her anger escalated to the point that court officers had to escort her from the room. Each interruption added a new layer of chaos, leaving observers struggling to comprehend her actions.
You get your shit. You know we had to beg you. Me, Steve, all of us used to cry for you.
You're not gonna be able...
The courtroom became a stage for her volatile and disturbing claims. Blair accused her deceased children of abusing their younger sibling, a statement met with skepticism by the prosecution. Assistant Wayne County Prosecutor Karen Goldfarb directly challenged these allegations, stating, "There is no evidence in this case that any of the younger children or the younger child was sexually abused, and if there was any evidence, it actually pointed back at Blair." Despite the clear lack of proof, Blair continued to insist on her narrative, complicating the proceedings and shocking everyone present. As the trial progressed, the grim reality of her crimes never left the courtroom. Witnesses described a household steeped in fear, and the prosecution laid out the chilling details of how Blair concealed the deaths of Stoney and Stephen. The evidence was overwhelming. By the time sentencing arrived, the courtroom was tense, heavy with the weight of grief and anger from the victims' families. In the final moments of the trial, Judge Dana Hathaway delivered a sentence that reflected the gravity of Blair's actions. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge remarked, sharply, "You imposed the death penalty on your own children." Blair's response was brief, cold, and unflinching. She answered, "I did." Her demeanor remained unchanged, offering no sign of remorse or acknowledgement of the lives she had destroyed. While this is a case that is truly horrifying, it is only the beginning because we are going deeper. At number 8 is Ellis Ortiz-Nieves.
Some of the bruises were in the shape of a belt buckle.
I ain't gonna let you sit here say no crazy shit.
At a court in the Western District of Michigan, Ellis Nelson Ortiz-Nieves faced sentencing for the brutal murder of 4-year-old Giovanni Mejias. Shackled and defiant, Ortiz-Nieves was led to the bench, convicted of felony murder and first-degree child abuse, facing a mandatory life sentence. But the solemnity of the moment exploded into chaos. In a shocking display of violence, Ortiz-Nieves struggled with deputies, screaming and thrashing as officers wrestled him to the ground. Gasps filled the room. The defiance of a man guilty of such horrific crimes left the courtroom stunned, his lack of remorse impossible to ignore. Every eye in the room witnessed the raw, dangerous energy of a man confronting the consequences of his actions.
In a shower with ice-cold water.
The story behind the crime added another layer of shock. Giovanni's mother, Sonia Hernandez, had once stood by Ortiz-Nieves, even testifying in his defense. As the investigation unfolded, her support unraveled, exposing a disturbing truth. Hernandez admitted to lying under oath and failing to protect her children from the violence in their home. Her own sentencing brought tears and a public acknowledgement of her failures. She pleaded for forgiveness, but Judge Dennis Lieber delivered a stern reminder. There was no justification or excuse for abandoning the care of her children. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of responsibility and the consequences of neglect pressing down on everyone present. This case revealed a dark reality lurking behind closed doors, a tragedy fueled by deceit, negligence, and violence. From Ortiz-Nieves' explosive outburst to Hernandez's tearful admissions, the courtroom became a stage for human horror and accountability. As the gavel fell and the sentences were carried out, the room was left to wrestle with the chilling truth. Some tragedies are not random, they are preventable, and the next case in this video proves it. At number 7 we have Sierra Harp. In a courtroom filled with members of a family grieving the most heinous tragedy, Sierra Harp faced her fate. Her face showed nothing but defiance, a chilling mask as the proceedings unfolded. The atmosphere was thick with shock, every eye fixed on the woman whose actions had horrified a community. This was the trial of a mother whose calculated violence had ended the life of her child's father, Raheem Grant.
I have never, ever seen a murder defendant's mother berate her daughter in court like I just witnessed, and I've never seen that defendant, Sierra Harp.
The events of December 29, 2017 were horrific. Raheem Grant, an aspiring rapper, fought for his life as Harp attacked him. He recorded the attack on his phone, bloodied and desperate, pleading for mercy. Her voice cut through the recording, mocking, taunting, and filled with venom. The final moments of his life were captured on camera, a brutal testament to the coldness of the act. The courtroom drama intensified during sentencing when Harp's own mother, Adrienne Thurmond, took the stand. Her voice trembled with raw emotion as she confronted her daughter. "You murdered Raheem," she said, her eyes locked on Harp. "Wherever you went, chaos followed." The room fell silent at the weight of her words, a mixture of grief and accusation hanging in the air. Harp's response shocked everyone. She mouthed a profanity at her mother and hurled a derogatory insult, showing contempt instead of remorse.
And Harp's mother asked for the stiffest punishment possible, life without parole. Harp sneered at her mother and mouthed a profanity and called her mother a female dog. Now,
the audacity of her defiance left the courtroom stunned, whispers filling the tense silence. Every head turned, every person grappling with the sheer brazenness of her behavior. The judge's words came down like a hammer. Unmoved by her lack of contrition, he sentenced Sierra Harp to 125 years in prison. The life of Raheem Grant was gone. A family was torn apart. A community was left to confront the chilling reality of a senseless, violent act. The trial exposed the terrifying extremes of human rage and the cruelty that can emerge within families. It forced observers to ask how love and protection could twist into violence and destruction. Raheem Grant's daughter now grows up without her father, under the care of her grandmother. She carries the weight of that night, shielded only by the resolve of a family member determined to keep her safe and tell her the truth of what happened. And we move to a more terrifying case. At number 6 is Ashley Wade.
Clancy sentenced Wade to 25 years to life for murder and 15 years for kidnapping. Those sentences will be served consecutively, meaning she will spend at least 40 years in prison.
Ashley Wade stood in the courtroom, unflinching as the weight of her crimes hung over her. The air was thick with tension, every eye fixed on her as the details of her shocking actions were laid bare. Outside the Bronx Supreme Court, cameras captured the grim spectacle, but inside, the horror was raw and immediate. This was a case of murder and kidnapping so calculated, it seemed almost unimaginable.
Those days of planning and those moments of slaying Angelica and stealing her baby, she did in fact in those moments become a monster.
Angelica Sutton, a young mother full of life, had been brutally taken from the world. Prosecutors revealed the chilling truth. Wade had planned every step of the attack. From the stabbing to the extraction of Angelica's unborn baby, Wade's actions were not impulsive but meticulously orchestrated. The courtroom heard testimony of her planning, each detail more horrifying than the last, leaving no doubt about the cold and calculated nature of the crime. Family members sat frozen as the story unfolded. Bishop Sutton, Angelica's father, tried to contain his grief, offering only a fragile smile as reporters asked if he felt justice had been served. "Yes, we did. We got justice," he said, his voice trembling with sorrow. The courtroom remained tense, every spectator grappling with the magnitude of the betrayal and violence. Even the judge, unmoved by claims of Wade's troubled past or mental health struggles, made it clear that such deliberate cruelty demanded the full force of the law. When Judge Clancy delivered the sentence, the room fell silent. Ashley Wade received 25 years to life for murder, plus 15 years for kidnapping, to be served consecutively. In total, she will spend at least 40 years behind bars. Outside, relatives and onlookers showed quiet relief, tears falling for the life lost and the justice finally served. Yet the haunting reality remained. Angelica's baby would grow up knowing the shadow of violence and loss, never meeting the mother taken from her so brutally. The case left the world reeling, a stark reminder of human cruelty and the devastating which leads us to number 5. Chad Doerman.
So, Cal, anything further?
Nothing at this time.
All right, thank you.
June 15, 2023, started like any other day in Monroe Township, Ohio. Chad Doerman, 33, a father of 3, came home early from work. What seemed ordinary soon became a nightmare. He gathered his sons, Clayton, 7, Hunter, 4, and Chase, 3, and his wife, Laura, into the master bedroom under the pretense of taking a nap. But what followed was far from peaceful. In the days before, Doerman's behavior had grown strange and alarming. He muttered to himself, carried a Bible around the house, and unsettled his wife to the point that she threatened to call his parents. He assured her he was just kidding, then retrieved a .22 caliber rifle from his safe. What happened next would shock the entire community. In a chilling act of violence, Doerman shot his youngest son, Chase, in the head. Laura tried to stop him, but he shot her in the thumb, forcing her to drop Chase. He then killed Clayton and Hunter, executing each child in front of his wife and his 14-year-old daughter, who narrowly survived. Afterward, he calmly sat on the front stoop while Laura desperately tried to save their children. Police arrived at 4:25 p.m. and Doerman complied, showing his hands and walking toward them. He was arrested without resistance. Stop! The community was stunned. Neighbors described Doerman as irritable, yet no one expected violence on this scale. The family appeared normal on the surface, and there had been no prior reports of domestic trouble. Doerman later pleaded guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder and 2 counts of felonious assault as part of a plea deal that avoided the death penalty. He received 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 16 years for assault. Laura, his ex-wife, said she would never forgive him, but could not bring herself to hate him, remembering the father he had once been. But his daughter was compassionate at the trial, despite the horror and loss she suffered. Even with the guilty plea, the motive behind Doerman's actions remains a mystery. There was no history of mental illness or violent behavior, leaving the community and the families of the victims searching for answers in the senseless tragedy. Chad Doerman, a father entrusted with the lives of his children, became their killer, but he is not alone. Some even take it a step further, like the case in number 4, which is of Chris McNab.
Okay, so they ought to get the maximum sentence.
Most definitely.
Okay. On the crime of malice murder, I sentence you to life in confinement without parole.
October 2017 in Newton County, Georgia, began like any other fall day, but what unfolded would shock the community. Christopher McNab, 25, reported his 2-week-old daughter, Kamya, missing, claiming she had been abducted from their home during the night. Authorities soon discovered a horrifying truth. Kamya had been wrapped in a t-shirt and blanket, placed in a drawstring bag, and hidden beneath a log in a wooded area near the family's home. Investigators uncovered a grim picture of McNab's life. He had a history of methamphetamine use and had been involved in a violent relationship with Kamya's mother, Courtney Bell. Evidence at trial revealed that McNab had struck the infant with an object, causing fatal injuries. The details painted a disturbing image of a household marred by drugs and violence, where a newborn's life was put at unimaginable risk. In May 2019, the case came to trial. A Newton County jury convicted McNab of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, cruelty to children in the first and second degrees, and concealing the death of another. Testimonies about the couple's drug use and violent behavior were central to the prosecution's case. Despite McNab insisting on his innocence, the jury found him guilty on every count. During sentencing, McNab continued to deny responsibility. In a tense courtroom moment, the judge asked him to propose a sentence for the person he believed committed the crime. In doing so, McNab inadvertently recommended the maximum punishment for himself. The judge sentenced him to life without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for concealing Kalaya's death. The aftermath left the community grappling with shock and sorrow. McNab's actions revealed the dangers hidden behind closed doors and the tragic consequences of substance abuse and domestic violence. Baby Kalaya's death is a haunting reminder of the vulnerability of children and the need for vigilance when warning signs appear. This is a case of how much you think you know people, and in the next case, this will be taken to a whole new level. At number 3 is Kamya Gamut.
At trial, the way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off of lies.
Kamya Tiffany Gamut stood in the courtroom, the weight of her crimes pressing down on every corner of the room. In Jackson, Michigan, a story of trust shattered by violence unfolded, leaving the community stunned. Gamut, 31, had been in a relationship with Marcel Hill, a 38-year-old man with cognitive impairments. What began as companionship spiraled into a cycle of abuse, manipulation, and terror. Testimonies painted a chilling picture. Neighbors and medical professionals recounted incidents where Gamut had stabbed Hill and sewn up his own wounds, a testament to the control and fear she exercised over him. Hill never reported the attacks, trapped by dependency and the constant threat of further harm. Each story revealed a pattern of escalating violence, leaving observers to wonder how someone could inflict so much pain on a person they claimed to love. On May 18, 2013, the abuse ended in unimaginable horror. Neighbors heard screams, glass breaking, and desperate cries for help. When authorities arrived, Hill was found dead, bearing multiple stab wounds and blunt force injuries. The brutality of the crime left no room for doubt. Gamut initially denied involvement, later claiming self-defense, but the evidence told a far darker story. The prosecution laid bare her history of abuse and the sheer severity of the attack, showing a deliberate, merciless intent. During the March 2014 trial, the courtroom was gripped by the shocking details of Gamut's actions. Judge John McBain did not hold back and warned Gamut that her behavior in court could lead to extreme measures, even threatening to tape her mouth shut. The judge was not buying her excuses and was fed up with how she was deflecting and trying to shift blame when all the evidence was clear. He brutally attacked her defense that she made a mistake. The jury convicted her of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Up next at number 2 is Michael Sykes. Michael Sykes faced Justice Mario F. Mate on November 19, 2018, as the courtroom held its collective breath. The atmosphere was heavy with sorrow and disbelief. Sykes had been convicted of the brutal murders of his girlfriend, Rebecca Cutler, and her 2 young daughters, Ziana and Malaya, at the Ramada Inn in Staten Island on February 10, 2016. He also received a 25-year-to-life sentence for the attempted murder of the youngest child, Miracle Cutler, who survived. Judge Mate handed down 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, leaving Sykes to spend the rest of his life behind bars. District Attorney Michael E. McMahon called the sentence a step toward justice, honoring the victims and their families. The horror unfolded on that February night. Sykes entered room 210 at the Ramada Inn and unleashed a violent attack, fatally stabbing Rebecca and her daughters, Ziana and Malaya. Miracle was also stabbed, but survived against all odds. Witnesses described hearing blood-curdling screams and seeing Sykes flee the scene. A massive manhunt ensued, and he was arrested 4 days later in Queens, ending the immediate threat but leaving a community reeling. Sykes' legal battle was as turbulent as the crime itself. Initially convicted in November 2017 of second-degree murder for Rebecca's death, the jury had deadlocked on charges related to the children, forcing a retrial. The second trial presented damning evidence, including testimony about Sykes' violent tendencies and the extreme injuries inflicted on the victims. Despite defense arguments, the jury found him guilty on all counts, and the life sentences were finalized in 2018. The aftermath left Staten Island shaken. The murders scarred the community, and local leaders spoke out about the need to recognize and intervene in cases of domestic abuse. Rebecca's family mourned the loss of their loved ones, while Miracle's survival offered a fragile glimmer of hope amid the devastation. Sykes' crimes stand as a horrifying reminder of the deadly potential of domestic violence, and the lingering question remains, how could such evil go unchecked until it was too late? And the number 1 case is Uriah Ridge. Shock gripped Douglas County today as 35-year-old Uriah Ridge faced her first court appearance. The tension in the room was palpable, not quiet respect, but a chilling disbelief. Ridge stood motionless as prosecutors read the charges: felony murder and first-degree child cruelty, crimes so severe that the state warned she could face the death penalty.
And death by lethal lethal injection if the state chooses to seek the death penalty.
The horror of the case is unimaginable. Ridge allegedly left her 3-year-old daughter Alina and 7-year-old son Elijah in the woods for more than 11 hours during freezing rain. Alina wore only a onesie. Prosecutors say Ridge was high on cocaine and marijuana at the time, yet she had a working phone and made no effort to get help. Deputies described a grim scene: hypothermia, exposure, and a tragedy that could have been prevented if a parent had acted. Courtroom cameras revealed Ridge posting pictures of her children on Facebook before the incident, seemingly detached from the deadly reality unfolding. As the warrant detailed how Alina died from the cold, Ridge showed no reaction. Not a tear, not a whisper. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. Prosecutors then laid out a pattern of abuse, including a 2022 incident where Ridge allegedly punched her son and dropped her then 2-year-old daughter in public while using vulgar language. Family members in court were visibly shaken, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Legal experts monitoring the hearing expressed alarm at her apparent lack of remorse, noting how it could influence sentencing. The cold detachment from her own children left everyone questioning how a parent could act this way. Questions remain. Ridge's defense has yet to speak, and the court must consider whether drug use impaired her judgment or if this was deliberate cruelty. Mental health factors could also play a role. For now, Ridge is held without bond, and the case moves rapidly toward a trial that could end with the harshest penalty. This is more than a story of tragedy. It is a chilling reminder of extreme parental neglect and the deadly consequences when intervention comes too late.